Let's face it, if you let your users enter responses that go back to customers, you'll often get something between "I did it" and one giant run-on sentence. I'm very guilty of those myself. So in today's video, we're going to learn 2 different ways to add AI to our PowerApps to fix these responses. This is inspired by one of our customers' apps, so it's very real world, very practical stuff, right? So first, we're going to use AI prompts via Flow. This is a very powerful option that uses AI Builder and lets us do more than just fix their words, since they can provide both the syntax, so it was a question they asked, and personality of the prompt, use friendly words like I do. Then we will show a new feature the PowerApps team added about 2 weeks ago. It isn't as good, but it also requires almost zero work on your part. You just kind of turn on and get Copilot bolted in, so look at that as well. Sound like fun? Then let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. All right, so first let's just start with a quick demo so you can see in action the 2 things we're going to learn. So this is an app that I made pretty quickly the other day, and what I want to do is show you a work orders app, right? Very similar to a customer scenario. And so here you can see that like Mary was assigned a work order. And so it was fix the leaks in the roof. So Mary went and fixed the roof. And so now she needs to update the ticket. So typically Mary would go here and say edit. And then she would hit a status update and be like, all fixed, right? And then she would save it. And because our process then notifies the customer via email, that would be all they see is all fixed, right? Which is fine. It communicates information, but it's not very pleasant, right? So what Mary now has the option of doing is saying, hey, I want to get an AI assist there. So if she clicks on AI assist, now you can see her draft just pulled over, and then she can update it with AI. But we have found that by rolling this out, that a lot of the technicians wanted to kind of sculpt it a certain way for themselves. So what we did was we said, hey, you can personalize. So if you hit personalize, this is where you're going to add extra instructions that are going to go to the prompt and say, hey, please end the response with thanks Shane. And maybe we'll add something like, and make the tone very friendly and casual, right? So if you've taken my AI class, you know that I talk a lot about prompting and providing context, right? So the context is the work order, right? So what did they actually do? So you're not seeing that on the screen, but we're pulling over what they originally requested for in the case of fixing the leaks on the roof. Then we're saying, hey, we want it to sound more like me. So here's what I want it to sound like. So now if we say update with AI, what we're going to get, hey there, I just want to let you know that I've taken care of the leaks in the roof for you. Everything should be all fixed now. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks, Shane, right? So see how that is so much better than all fixed, right? Both communicate the same thing, but one sounds a lot better than the other. And because we gave this ability to personalize the instructions, not only does it sound a little bit more like me, it has my closing. So as you think about personalized instructions, they could be things like sounding like your person responding, so your customer service agent, things like that. Or maybe you want all the responses to kind of go back in a set pattern. So we would go in and define that in our AI prompt so that it understood that, hey, here's what you're getting, and then I want you to kind of sculpt it to follow this pattern every time, right? The things that Gen AI are really good at, they're going to make your apps better, right? So we're good with this. Now we just save our response, and then we save this. And boop, we are off and running, right? We now have a great response going off email to our customer. If you are interested in like building this whole app end to end, this exact one you see here, go check out is my new Mastering AI class. In that class, this is one of the modules that just got released here in the last few days that walks you through end to end building a solution like this and all the different things to think about. The second thing that we're going to learn today is if we say edit again. So now if you go in here, anytime you have a text input in field, you can now say draft with Copilot. And so if we click on this, now we're going to be able to prompt it and then say go here. And so now AI is composing a draft. It's trying to rework those words and make it better, right? It's reworking stuff it already reworked, but that's all right. But here you're going to see that, look, they kind of simplified it. And so now I have the ability just to replace the text. I can have it try again. I can set the tone. So if I want to set the tone, remember I like a friendly tone, and I can also set the length. Now, this is interesting because this is kind of all automatically built in. We'll look at this a little bit later in the video. But what I think, you're missing here though, is like, this is just taking my words, right? Like if we had put in the whole idea of, remember Mary's original response was all fixed or something like that. Like if we do that and we hit this, right? It doesn't have enough information. So it wouldn't work in cases where Mary just kind of threw a little bit because it's not reading that she's saying that I fixed the leaks in the roof. So it's not getting that additional context. It can't automatically have the endings and the patterns bolted on. So this is an interesting method, but it is not nearly as powerful as what I'm about to teach you around the AI prompts. Okay, so let's go build ourselves these AI prompts. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over here to another app right here. And so all I did in this one is I kind of pre-built this load, right? So I gave it a home screen here, like, Canva gave me a picture and I made the colors match, right? There's nothing going on here. If we press the start button, it takes us over here to the request screen. And so here I've just got a bunch of fake requests that I'm feeding through a collection. We're setting the gallery, we're doing a little bit of switch here to kind of get the icons to match up with the priority. You get the idea. But then, so say if they say, hey, I want to look at the my package has not arrived, right? So this is a customer service instead of work orders. But if we click on that one, you'll see over here that we've got the request. And then here in the draft request, you know what? We don't want that. We actually want this to be gallery selected dot response, right? So there's currently no response for my package is not arrived. We want to do an AI update. I've done nothing else, right? It's just set up. So we're gonna have to build the whole AI update piece ourselves. So to build an AI update, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna open up a different browser window back over at make.powerapps.com, right? And so here, if you go to more, and then if you look through here, you're not gonna see what you want most likely. So you're gonna say discover all. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom down here, we've got AI prompts. Okay, so this is part of AI Builder. It's built into the Power Platform, so it's already all there. Now, AI Builder does require AI credits, so you'll want to look at that if you don't have any AI credits available, but I've got a few of those, so I'm able to take advantage of this. And so you can see the prompts I've built otherwise for the class, but for here, we're going to say, hey, I want to build a new one. So I'm going to say, I want to create text with a GPT using a prompt. Okay, so this is how you build a custom prompt. Now they give you an example, some different things. They're kind of walking you through this view of documentations down here in the bottom right. We're just going to click on create custom prompt, probably partially under my face, but that's all right. And so here we're going to start to fill in what do we want to do. So in our case, if you think about it, right, what are we going to have? We're going to have their request, right? The context that we need. We might have a draft response of what the person has wanted to write. So we'll go over here and we'll say, all right, we'll start with help me create a response to a customer service request, please. I always say please, right? The request is, and so here we want to pass the information directly from the app. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on add dynamic value. So now think about this as like if you're thinking about flow, just an input, right? We want to put an input, we want to put some dynamic value in here. And so we want to name this something that makes sense to us. So we're just going to call it request. Okay, so we just type in request, we click away, boom, we made that a input. Now we're going to add the draft response. The initial response was, and then we're going to add another dynamic value, right? We have as many as these want. And then now we'll call this draft, right? We're calling it the draft response over in the app, right? We're just making it easier for ourselves. So you can call it whatever you want. Call it cow, I don't care. But we're trying to make this easy. So now we're say, hey, here's two inputs, right? And this is where we're having the advantage over the other way we're going to show you, right? Because we have these multiple inputs that helped us sculpt to a better solution. And so now we're going to say something like, please create a new response that is friendly and appropriate to send back to the customer. It should be empathetic as necessary while keeping the response concise. Okay? Something to that effect. And so now we want to test it out. Okay, so all you want to do is go down here, expand out, test your prompt. And here you can see we can now enter in our values so we can test them on the fly, right? So we can just quickly do a test. So let's give it a request, something like, all right, so for request, we're going to do my package arrived damaged. And then for the draft, we ship the replacement and will be there in 3 to 5 days. Sound like fun? So let's say test prompt. So this is going to process those inputs through what we told it above. And now if we go down here and look, we'll see. Response, I am sorry to hear that your package arrived damaged. We apologize for any inconvenience may have caused. We have already shipped a replacement for you, which should arrive within 3 to 5 days. If you have further concerns or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you for your understanding. Do you see how much better that is, right? And so now that we understand that we can do things like this, I can also adjust it. So for example, I don't like this, it starts with response. So I might go back up here and say something like, please don't begin the response with response : or any form of that, just respond. All right, so then now we'll say test again, and look, same type of thing. So this is what we're after, right? And remember, in my AI class, like we talked about all the different ways to prompt this, make it better, add more context, set the format. Like we're not gonna get into all of those mechanics. But now the world is your oyster. You can set this prompt to behave any way you want, tailoring the responses to be as specific or as generic as you want. Or in the demo that we did before, I also included a voice. So I just had a third piece in here that said, hey, please respond taking this personality into account, right? Or something to that effect. And that's how I added that. We're not going to add that here because you've kind of seen the mechanics, but that was the way that I added that. So then up here, we'll just give it a name real quick. We'll call this customer service prompt video. And then now we'll click down here and say save the custom prompt, right? So this is saving it off for us so that we can now leverage this. All right, I'll save the code in the green bar. So now if we switch back over to our app, we'll go here and we can X. And so what we need to do now is add this into our app. Now, there's two different ways that we can add this in. Typically, I've been using Flow to do it, right? And the reason I've been using Flow is it just felt natural to me as, okay, I want to talk to something else. The way PowerApps talks to other things is using a Power Automate flow. But in reality, you can just go over here to data sources. We'll say add data, right? You can see my collection is the only thing in there so far. And if we search for customer service now, look at that. Customer service prompt video, right? Name these things something you find. It's got the little blue brain looking icon. And so you know that that is what we just added. So you do this, this is going to bring this in as a data source. Okay, so there it is. It is in there as a data source. So now if we go over here to our button, right? I've added the button, I haven't done anything to it yet. What we can do is we could say something like this, update context, and then create ourselves a variable. So var response. And then what do we want here? So just like the way that we run a flow, you're going to do customer service prompt video, right? So that's the name of it. Then you'll do a dot and predict. So that's the text. You do this, and now it says, hey, I need the draft and the request, right? So what is the draft? We know the draft is this input right here. So if we click on it, that is text input 2_1. No, thank you. We'll rename that to input draft, right? Make these names easier for you. And then we have the request here. So we're just gonna rename this one to input request or REQ. Okay, so back over here. So now you've got, for the draft, we want it to be input draft.text. And then for the request, we want input request.text. Now you notice here, right, if you look over here, right, we got comma, dot, dot, dot. That means there's an optional parameter or parameters. So if you do the comma, you can see the optional thing is additional context. So interestingly enough, when you do these AI prompts, you can add to the prompt on the fly. So if you wanted to give it custom instructions, so maybe you had a place in here that said custom instructions, right? Kind of like we did the whole personalized before. You could always pass those custom instructions in here. And so that would be appended to your prompt. So it wouldn't be in line. You know, I don't like that as much. If you know you're going to have custom instructions, I prefer that you built the prompt to accept it and you pass that as an input instead of doing it on the fly, but you absolutely can. So we're going to get rid of that because we're not going to use it. We'll close our parentheses. Then you're going to do a dot here. So when you get the response, there's two things that come back. There's a finished reason and there's text. So finished reason, it'll be something like stop or, you know, I freaked out, error, you know, the kind of the status of the request. We don't want that. We want the text that comes back. So we'll do a text and then we'll close our parentheses. Oh, we'll close our curly brackets and then we'll close our parentheses like that. So now it should take whatever's here and here, put that in here, and then give us a response back. So then we could go down here. For the moment, let's just throw in another text input, drag it down here. And the reason we want to make this a text input is we want to let the user be able to respond, right? Or to be able to manipulate. Because yes, we're giving them the AI response, but we found that the users want to change it. They want to say, they want to be able to go do whatever they want to do. So we always want to make this a text input, right? Because they need to be able to validate, update it, right? It's a Copilot, remember that. Okay, and then with that, we'll just expand over here for a second, and we're going to change this format from single line to multi-line. Close that back up, and then we'll set its default to be var response. Okay, so now if we said my package has not arrived, the draft response here would be something like keep waiting. Let's just be as rude as possible. Let's say AI updates, and now it's thinking, it's processing, and look, it took their terrible response of keep waiting to, hey, I understand it's not done, right? But when you look in this, I'll provide you an update as soon as possible. Right? They added a much, much nicer tone to just keep waiting, right? That gruff response. So this is how you deal with your customer service agents, work order responses, all of that being very friendly and a little bit more on company brain. Now, then, of course, now that we have this, then we would need to what, right? We would probably need to go over here. We'll say, we'll just copy this button real quick, copy, paste. And then we'll shrink this. We'll change the text to this or the on select to this, right? We would then need to patch or save our data. So we'd say patch our customer service request. What do we want to patch? We want to patch gallery 1 selected. And what do we want to do? We want to set the response to be that text input, right? So it's text input 1, which we know we should rename. We're not going to rename another one. That's too much work for me, like so. So then that would do that. And then we'll, of course, take the button, we'll kind of double click in here and change this to say save. And so now if we hit play, we know that if we hit save, boop, now that has been updated. If we click on another one, it's blank, boom, boom. And so, you know, the other thing I would probably do in this case with my save, so after we do the patch, then we would say update context for a var response, and then we would just set it to blank, right? We want to blank out that variable. So then that way they're not seeing the old response. Okay, so now if we go back to that, right, if we said my package has not arrived, so if we say save, it gets patched, that's blank. So now all of these are blank. But if we say, hey, my software keeps crashing, once again, we go in here and we could be like, did you try to reboot? And then we'd say AI update. And then there you go, right? We got some instructions. We can save those. Whoop, everything's good. What? I know, right? Now, keep in mind with this app, you'd want to add some niceties, right? You'd want to add the little loading spinner or make them wait while the AI update is running. You wouldn't want this button to be enabled until they had filled in both of these, right? If either of these were blank, it shouldn't be enabled. And then save shouldn't be enabled unless this field is not blank, right? So you'd want to go add those niceties, but overall, you kind of get the idea. And speaking of these ideas, right, if you want to download this app, you can just go to my YouTube library, right? It is over on training.powerapps911.com. You can download this working app. You know what? I was thinking about this. I want to add one more thing in the mix, and that's if you were using the flow. So we're not going to use a flow with this one. I just want to kind of show you what that would look like. So if we click over here on Power Automate and create a new flow, and once again, you wouldn't have to do this via PowerApps. You could have a flow that was taking any different action, right? But we just want to kind of put it in the flow. So we'd say create a flow. And so over here, right, we throw a new step in. And what you're going to see is under AI Builder, you're going to want to use create text with GPT using a prompt. So this is the same thing that we were just looking at. You would choose a prompt. And so down here at the bottom, we should see our customer service one right there. Now you also get these AI classify, extract, reply, sentiment, and summarize. So these are not ones that I built. These are ones that come with it all the time. So if you didn't even need to have a custom prompt, you're like, hey, I'm just trying to get AI to extract some information or, summarize this information, then you can use one of these built-in ones, right? So if we say AI summarize, you would see that then it would just be like, hey, I need you to tell me what text you're going to pass, right? The same thing if we change this and go to our customer service prompt video, the one we just built. So then here you would see that you're going to see the two inputs, right? The input for the draft, the input request. There's that additional context that we've already talked about. So this is what you'd pass. And then in the case of our Power App here, we would just do a response, right? Respond to a Power App flow. Remember, Power Apps doesn't have a space in it. And when you're in flow, we could add an output text. And then if you look here under dynamic content, what you should see, if we scroll all the way to the bottom, is there is that same text. Remember, this is the response that came back, or the finished reason, right? This is that whole stop or whatever might have happened, right? But we're typically looking for the text. So there you go. So I just want to make sure you understood that you could incorporate this into a flow just the same way, right? It's the action here, the same inputs. And so this could be when an email arrives, when someone messages me in Teams, whatever happens, you have the ability to trigger, take action, and then respond. So just a quick little bonus tip, right? Back to whatever I was doing before. Okay, so now let's talk about the second option, right? So this here, right? Let's just go back and let's just add a new one, right? So I'm gonna say insert a text input. Okay, all we're gonna do is text input, clear out the default text. And now what we wanna do with this text input is we're gonna go over to the properties and we wanna set the mode to be multi-line, right? Literally the only thing we're gonna do. Now, if you hit play, notice that there is no Copilot enhancements here, right? This was something that really frustrated me at first. So what you're going to need to do here is you're going to need to publish your app, right? So publish this thing out because the Copilot enhancement is only going to show up in the published version. It is not going to show up in the maker experience. Boom! I don't know. Microsoft chose to do it that way, so they did. But now if we jump back over here to Power Apps, go open up my app again. All right, so here we'll say play on the app. Look at that wonderful home screen. We'll say start. But watch, now when I click in this box, click, look, draft with Copilot. So this is brand new, hot off the presses. And the way that this works is then they can click on draft with Copilot. It works a lot like the Office 365 Copilots if you're using those, or Microsoft 365, whatever we call those. And so in here, you could type something like, yes, you should sign up for Shane's new AI training class. High five. It is awesome and you'll need to be more awesome at prompting, right? So I purposely did a poor job, right? My English is bad, but it's not quite that bad. But now if we hit the little send button here, it is going to compose a draft. And you can see, look, You should consider enrolling in Shane's new AI training class, right? Notice we have capitalization, we have an apostrophe, we end a sentence. It offers an excellent opportunity. AI said it must be true to enhance your prompting skills and become even more proficient in this field. Now, remember, once you've done this, you can click add. That would go straight in. We could change the tone to be more conversational. And as soon as we click on that, right, there you go. It's made it. And then we can say, make it long, right? Give them a really good answer there. And so you have the ability to then kind of tune it. Now, what's different here though, right, is we don't have the context. So we couldn't add the request response coming in there. We can't add the additional parameters. We can't add the voice. We kind of are boxed in pretty tight. But for something that requires zero effort, it doesn't use any AI credits as far as I know right now. I believe it's just on for everyone. All you have to do is have an app and have a text input or a rich text input. Either one of those work. And then you set it to the text input to multi-line, and this just shows up. All right, if you want to rework it, you could go back in here and rework it. Oh, I accidentally X'd out. This is a problem, right? You can really mess it up pretty quick. But this is kind of cool, and it's free, and it just works. So please give this a go. But if you're really trying to do something like what we did here around customer service work orders, you're going to want to use the AI prompt because you're going to want more control, right? You're going to really want to drive them in a specific direction. Questions, comments. Have you hit the subscribe button? Why haven't you done that? Or the like button at least? How about that? All right, if you want to subscribe, you like. All right, anyway, if you have any of that, leave me comments down below. I'm always looking for thoughts, ideas, other things I can do. Are there other videos like this? What have you done? Have you AI enhanced one of your apps and you want to brag about it? Leave us a note down below. And with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day.